This episode of WDW Today is being sponsored by All-Star Vacation Homes, and in your trip to Walt Disney World, when you realize, boy, Pop Century maybe wasn't that great of an idea for a whole week over here because of the small space, an All-Star Vacation Home might be the best option for you. They've got so much space. Everyone gets their own master bedroom, kids get greatly themed rooms, and lots of great amenities like your own private pool, full kitchen, lots of other great amenities like that. All-Star Vacation Home is the perfect solution for people who want to have lots of space for a fraction of the cost of what it would cost to get it at Disney World. So why not visit them online at www.allstarvacationhomes.com.
This is Walt Disney World Today. Give us 5 minutes and we'll give you the world.
It's Friday, July 3rd, 2009, and this is episode 586 of WDW Today. I'm Matt Hotchkiss of StudioCentral.com. Joining me on today's show is Mike Scopa, a senior feature writer and blogger for allears.net. Welcome, Mike.
Matt, there are limits beyond which man and his puny efforts cannot survive.
My wife.
I was going to say the exact same thing. I was going to say Leopold's wife, but it's not nearly as funny.
Try the veal.
Also joining us on today's show is Mike Newell of Mouse World Radio. Hi, Mike.
Hiya, Matthew. How are you?
Good. And also joining us on today's show is Len Testa, co-author of the unofficial guide to Walt Disney World. Len, what are you doing for July 4th?
Actually, July 4th is one of my favorite holidays, so I will wake up in the morning, I will throw on a copy of Jimi Hendrix playing the Star Spangled Banner, and I will continue the day playing nothing but American music, sung by Americans, served with American food.
Len, cut your hair and get a job, hippie.
We'll play everything from Aaron Copland to, I don't know, some Van Halen. Anyway.
Also joining us on today's show is Annette Owens, the manager of customer relations and group services for MEI and Mouse Fan Travel. Happy 4th of July, Annette.
Yep, it's time to start getting all that picnic stuff together.
That's right. And also joining us on today's show is Chris Eliopoulos of MiseryLovesSherman.com and DesperateTimes.com. But for everyone listening to this podcast, he's the guy that did that artwork you see at WDWToday.com. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Wait, thank you. And let me wish my boys a happy 10th birthday on July 4th.
Yay!
Nice.
Oh, wow.
Born on the 4th of July.
Yeah. And what was Scopa's attraction? We never...
Oh, yeah. What was it? Oh, yeah, it's totally cool.
Thank you, Chris.
Say it again.
Oh,
do it again.
no, I got to go back and look at it. Something about there are limits beyond. There are limits. Actually, there's another sentence that'll help you.
I thought
there
it
are
was
limits beyond.
No.
Yeah, really.
There are limits beyond which man and his puny efforts cannot survive. We have almost exceeded those limits.
All
Body
presents.
Wars?
It's an extinct attraction.
All of Body Wars.
Nope.
Arise.
Nope.
It's not Body Wars.
Nope.
20,000 Leagues.
Yep. Captain Nemo. Yep.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah.
Well, on today's show...
Hold on one second, Matt. Just a quick show discussion. A side note. You said you were going to have a famous cartoonist on. I thought it was that dude from Family Circus.
Oh.
You just get me.
Well, I was holding out for Marmaduke, but
I was hoping Al. How about Al Cap? Oh no, he's
Al
dead.
Cap, exactly.
Al Cap.
That's Andy Cap. Oh. We both knew it was Andy Cap.
How about that Al Cap? He's a crazy guy.
Second base for the Dodgers.
Didn't he invent,
Not Al Cap.
Al
he
Cap.
invented baseball, didn't he? Oh.
Throw that spitball, Kitty. Yes, sir.
That's baseball cap. That's right. Oh.
Lord.
anyway, on today's show, we're going to be talking about Stitch and his, we have to say, a failure as a character in Walt Disney World. We're not talking about him on the movie. We all loved Lilo and Stitch, thought it was a great film, which is why this actually adds to the conundrum, if you will, about because he's had two attractions to his name, Stitch's Escape at Tomorrowland and the now closed Stitch's, what was it? It was
Supersonic Adventure.
Supersonic Celebration.
Supersonic Adventure.
Sure, whatever. Anyway, it's gone. And it was interesting because it's been two attractions dedicated to Stitch, and both attractions have failed to really,
Not stuck.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Len. was looking for the eloquent way of saying it.
Yeah, they fail to not suck.
Yeah, and it's interesting because Stitch is a very popular character. I mean, the movie was tremendous. I think as a character in general, in terms of people wanting to meet him, he's I remember when his character Meet and Greet came out and it was a big deal. So we're going to discuss the attractions today, and we brought Chris on also to kind of give us a different vantage point, and that is, of course, Chris is an artist and he offers a different perspective on the issue. So let's talk about the attractions. When we, I guess, I think Scope, I don't know if it was you or Len who brought up this, but we'll start with you, Mike. When we talk about both attractions being a failure, what comes to mind? Do you attribute it to the character? Do you attribute it to the writing? What do you think is at fault here most?
It's a number of things, Matt. Len and Brian Bennett of Most Memories and Kenny Cottrell, who's now a cast member, we all went to Stitch's Great Escape on the day it opened, and we went in there, and from the first time we saw the pre-show, Len, please chime in, we had a feeling that there was going to be some problems. And then when we got in there and the show started, there were all kinds of issues. One of the issues was the script. Number two, the other issue was how the attraction was designed. When we saw Lilo and Stitch in the movies, we didn't see a lot of him as this huge six-armed creature. Like you see that grasshopper in It's Fun to Be a Bug. The thing is that the kids who went into that show that day when we went in, they were frightened to death of Stitch as a monster, number one. Getting back to the script, we didn't know if we should cheer for him or want him to burn because he was spitting at the audience. And I can remember something that will always stick in my mind. At the end of the show, remember, Len, you turned to me and you said, "This is not kid friendly." And we started talking to people. Another thing is that I always feel that they're trying to shove Stitch down our throats. When we left that theater, there were some cast members, and it looked like some kind of an official cast member leader or maybe an Imagineer who were asking the guests as they left the theater about the attraction, and they started off with a leading question. They said, "How did you enjoy the show?" Which assumes that they enjoyed it.
Actually enjoyed it,
and they
right.
wanted to know how much they enjoyed it, rather than say, "Did you enjoy it? What did you like? What did you not like?" And I can remember, Len, we had that guy up against the wall, and we were talking to him, saying, "What are you trying to pull here?" And he said, "Give us time. We're working on the script or whatever." And I think that in this case, Matt, with Stitch's Great Escape, I think they were trying to do too much. It looked like it was forced. It looked like it was hastily put together. I really think that they need to think about this more so in the future when they are doing things like this. And one of the things that we had heard as to the reason why they had put Stitch's Great Escape together was that he was moving up on the merchandise list, and he was selling a lot of merchandise. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean that he will translate into an effective attraction icon. And that's my 2 cents.
Len?
Yeah, I thought the same thing. I don't think Stitch works as a Disney character. I mean, it's kind of difficult to understand him. Number two, he's just not funny, or what's his gag? I don't. Donald has something, Mickey has something. I just don't get Stitch as a character in the way that I would get like Shrek. Right? Shrek has more personality even though he's not a Disney character. I just don't see what the empathy is with Stitch, or how people can identify.
I think what it is, just to answer your question right there, and almost maybe even a devil's advocate, is that Stitch is, I think, one of the first characters that I can remember in a while that really boys can identify with. That was actually popular. Toy Story did a good job with that.
I totally didn't get that out of that. Well, how about that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I always thought it was he was the bad boy. He was like that was his whole shtick. That's how he's always been marketed as. And I mean, when he's first debuted, I remember they which I don't necessarily agree with as being great taste, but they TP'd the Cinderella's castle,
right,
as kind of a thing. So kind of like, I guess, it's the in a park where pre-Stitch attractions, they really had mostly I think attractions that appealed to little girls. It was always hard, aside from like Pirates, to find attractions that boys would like. So I think that was a play at it. It's interesting, though, that you brought up. I mean, Scopa sounded like he said, okay, well, the attractions were just, mismanaged and poorly executed. But Len, you're talking more about the character in general. So I'd like to get Chris's actually answer to that, what Len was talking about, in your opinion, on Stitch as a character?
Well, him or me? You want my opinion or Len? Because Len doesn't have a good opinion.
What do you know about cartoons? Go ahead.
I know. Well, going back a little bit with the history of the movie was that when they were making it, Disney was not too keen on this movie. They just sort of set the directors off and said, go make your little movie. It's not going to be the big movie. They had another movie they planned to be the big movie, and Lilo and Stitch was a big surprise. And normally with corporations, as anything, when it boomed, they grabbed onto it and wanted to market it around. And what happens is I think they didn't really understand what it was about the character and the story that made it so it made everybody want to go see the movie. But what it was is it was a Frankenstein story. The character starts out as this monster that's built, and he discovers his humanity at the end. Disney has not figured out what they want. They want the monster at the beginning, or they want the lovable character at the end. And when they did that overlay on Extraterrestrial, they were giving the monster. And I don't think people fell in love with the monster. They fell in love with the good character that came out of the end of the movie. And they keep trying to go with this guy that is just the troublemaker, the difficult one, as opposed to the one that has discovered that it's all about family and taking care of the people you love. So I think they kind of dropped the ball on what made the character fun.
I think it's a great point, Chris. I think it's always. I mean, you're absolutely right. He's always been marketed as that monster. I remember on the monorail they used to have the decal of Stitch, mooning the people over there. I mean, that's always been his MO in the parks.
Well, even the wake up call. You know, when Stitch would wake you up in the rooms.
Yeah, that's right.
Yell at you.
Yell at you.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
But is that poor writing as opposed to the character itself?
In the movie, it was wonderful writing. It created a story arc. But what they're doing is they're not following. Like, people fell in love with him what he became. He realized that family is important, and he stood up for his family, and he defended them and used the quote unquote bad stuff about him to be a good guy. And what they're now is just showcasing is the bad guy, the troublemaker, he's the teenager, the rebel teenager that everybody hates, that TPs their house, that knocks over the mailbox with a baseball bat. Nobody wants that guy. They want the guy that's going to stand next to Cinderella and defend her because she's part of the family.
I think you're right, Chris. I think they had a choice. They had the mischievous Stitch, or they had the family guy kind of. Family Guy.
So what you're saying, it's not so much the character itself; it's the situations they're putting him in. In other words, the scripting, the writing, or whatever you want to call it. It's not so much the character. Everyone can relate to the goodness of the character, but they're portraying him as being this pain in the neck kind of guy.
Yeah. I mean, it was they tried to really shoehorn him into the Extraterrestrial ride. They wanted to give it a lighter fare. Obviously, everybody was getting scared when they went on that, or the little kids were getting scared, so they wanted to give him something that was happy-go-lucky. But they still gave the scary one. All the kids wanted to go in and see the friendly Stitch that was going to defend Lilo and look out for her. And what they got was the monster. And that still scares the kids. And it wasn't well thought out. Like, they should have had somewhere in that point where he was he comes around and becomes the good guy, or maybe they try to hurt us, the people sitting in the ride, and he defends us. That would have maybe made people turn around and say, oh, yes, I mean, he's one of us and he's looking out for us. Instead, we get the jerk that nobody wants to be around. Right. And I haven't seen the stage show, so I don't know what they did with him there.
Yeah, well, the stage show, that's interesting. It's great you brought that up, because the stage show is a little different. And obviously, Scope, I know you've seen it. Len, you posted actually the video on torrentplanes.com. I remember that was the first place I found it.
Oh, that was bad.
Yeah, this one, I think Stitch's Escape is tolerable. I mean, you could probably see it every couple of years, but the stage show was unfortunately an abysmal failure in terms of
the stage rate. So the review we had for the stage show was, and it's not in the book anymore because it's stage shows no more, but it was the quote was 11 minutes of your life that you'll never get back. Yeah, and it was just really. Now, would you guys say? I was thinking about this when Chris was talking. In the stage show, would you say that? Really, I was listening to Chris when he was talking. I was trying to.
Me too.
Trying to be attentive.
Trying to take it all in, and yeah.
Cool.
You're cool. You're cool. Go ahead.
Anyway, in the stage show, would you say, how would you label Stitch? Which Stitch are we seeing there? Are we seeing the troublemaker Stitch, or are we seeing more of a lovable Stitch there?
I think the more lovable Stitch.
Okay, and then once again he fails on his fault. Yeah, it fails even worse. Let me talk about your opinions on this one, Len. I mean, when you saw this thing, I mean, obviously you were very critical of it. Talk to us a little bit about what stands out to you from this attraction in terms of being just some abysmal failures.
So there are a couple of things that were wrong with it. One is that it tried to be too many things in one 10 or 11 minute show. So the premise of the show was that they were doing this sort of galactic broadcast of a celebration, and they had an MC on, like I guess like Ryan Seacrest is on American Idol, where he talking about what the celebration is and stuff like that. And they had some dancing girls come out, and just like in the Muppet Show, where the names of the girls on the Muppet Show, on the Muppet movie, the Muppet Vision.
It's the 3Ds.
Yeah, what are they?
Oh,
Dolores.
No,
Doris.
The Dino is sick. I remember that one.
Yeah,
Debbie was sick.
Yeah, Debbie
was sick.
Yeah, so it's like so the names of the dancers are like, Solara, Celestia,
right,
Galexia, and Kate, and but so it's the same joke that you've heard 1,000 times, and they do that, they do a dancing number, then Stitch comes on and talks a little bit. It's they do there's some breakdancing robots in the middle of it.
Yeah, see that's the thing though. The dancing, all the dancing in general adds nothing to the plot, nothing to the thing. I mean, they're the show. I always felt that every time Stitch, whatever you're seeing on screen, where Stitch is there and he's talking to the people, kind of like a turtle talk, and that kind of almost, it's like, okay, now we're back on track and it's making sense, and then it's just unknown dancing.
Yeah, it's like, what, random dancing? Yeah, and I'm like, well,
for no reason.
What are you doing with this?
So no Elvis, huh?
No, Elvis is there.
It seemed like it was Elvis's time of song, because the songs were like from the 60s and 70s.
Yeah, that was weird too. So it was they did a couple of different songs in there. One was Love Machine. Just a love machine.
His boots are made for walking.
Yeah, the Nancy Sinatra song.
And they did Elvis. They did. Then there was this there was this skit where they did this sort of an audience participation thing,
right?
Where they go out and they ask kids about something about the planet, and then Stitch accidentally blows up the planet. Let me just read you the review that I wrote. Okay, how's that?
yeah, it's not so much about the details, but talking about what is or what did or didn't work for it.
Well, one of the things. Go ahead,
let me just read the review real quick. It only takes a second. So it's like set on a dedicated stage between Buzz Lightyear and Carousel of Progress, Stitch's Supersonic Celebration combines an old-fashioned variety show with a bit of the high-tech audience interaction seen in Tomorrowland's Monsters Laugh Floor Comedy Club and Epcot's Turtle Talk with Crush. The premise is that Stitch interrupts television coverage of a galactic party hosted by a cliched MC. Stitch appears in a large video display above the stage, watches a couple of live dance numbers, and interacts briefly with members of the audience. For the finale, an Elvis jumpsuit-wearing Stitch shows up in person to perform the King's Rubbernecked on stage. The problem is that none of the dance numbers, audience participation, or jokes fit together in anything resembling a themed show. In 10 minutes' time, the audience gets go-go dancers, breakdancing robots, the Miracles Love Machine, an alien Elvis impersonator, and a bit about blowing up a planet by mistake. The show could be improved by dropping one of the musical numbers or a couple of minutes of dialogue for more audience interaction. The other thing is, too, and I think this was just a fabulous design decision, by the way, you're standing outside watching the show in the sun.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no shade whatsoever.
So I talked to Jim Hill about this, and he's like, yeah, they've been building stuff in Central Florida for 4 decades. They haven't figured out that they need shade yet. That's always good.
Well, that's always like the analogy I always use with cars is that, the first car was built in Model T came out in 1918 or something like that, 1920s. And they only started putting in drink holders in 1980s.
Yeah,
as standard. So it took him 60 years, to figure out maybe we need to put somewhere to put our drinks.
Well, seatbelts didn't come out until the 60s either, so.
That's right. Anyway. So, I mean, this show, is just, I think, again, lack of, what really blows my mind is that this show was actually taken from Disneyland Paris, and they edited the show. In that it's a different show in Disneyland Paris than it was here, and from what I can tell in Disneyland Paris was that the show actually made a little more sense. There was less of the weird dancing for no reason and more of the, the interaction.
French. It totally makes more sense. Everything makes more sense in French.
Fair enough. Scopey, your thoughts?
One of the things I wanted to point out that this keeps coming back in my head, and that is getting back to the character of Stitch. He really has his face is just such that unlike any other Disney character, you really can't look at his eyes and tell what he's thinking. They have to use his mouth expressions to show emotions. I'd like to hear Chris's comments on that. I think that plus his voice worked against him in this particular attraction. Sometimes the kids can't understand him because of the way that they've created his voice. I think that works against him, and it's one of those reasons why he as a character does not work well in an attraction.
But we can understand Donald?
Well, at least with Donald, you can look at his. But Mike, Donald doesn't talk like they had. When you go to see Crush, you can understand Crush, but listening to Stitch at his Supersonic Celebration or Adventure or whatever it was, very, very hard. And with Donald, at least you can see the expression in his eyes. I'm not sure.
He's always mad.
He's always mad. Exactly.
Chris?
Exactly.
Yeah. He is an interesting character. The character was created by Chris Sanders, who directed the movie, and he's actually voiced the Stitch character. I don't know who does it now since they've let him go over the. He was actually directing the Bolt movie, and when Pixar came on, he was let go, and so he voiced the character. And design the character, and it is a little interesting. It's sort of very kind of a mixture of like a puppy dog, but sort of alien looking thing, and I think a lot of the expression was created in his mobility, like the way he acted, and he was just sort of, even as an alien, he looked very insect like, or right. Which is kind of disturbing to most people. Especially when he has the 6 arms or the 4 arms and the legs, and the antenna looks kind of a little bit scary. And black eyes tend to scare most people because again they're very insect-like, and you can't really read a person's expression. And usually the best gauge that humans have of person they're looking at is their eyes. Eyes tell a lot. So I guess what they had to do with this character is express more in facial features and physical features. So when you've got a character who's running around in a costume, you've got these scary, still black eyes that don't move. And, when you go up to sign the autograph and you've got this thing looking back at you, I'm sure it does kind of creep a little kids out, and Matt as well. And because, Matt gets scared by anything. So it doesn't translate as well, and even in the audio animatronic that's in The Great Escape, you tend to again he's a scary character, but he is kind of creepy looking with the black eyes and doesn't translate as well. And they've tried to sort of make him the fuzzy character, but also the troublemaker, and sometimes it just doesn't work. For certain characters, it just sometimes things don't translate from one medium to the other.
Cool. And there's got to be a reason why they spent so much time working on Mickey's eyes over the years. Although Mickey's a completely different character, but when you think about some of the Disney animated characters, like Chris was saying, there's a lot that can be said looking at the eyes, and they just cannot achieve this with Stitch. And that plus the voice and the 6 legs and whatever, it just keep him on the movie, keep him on the screen, and that's where he should have stayed. And I never thought I would have said this, but I really miss Extraterrestrial Alien.
Me too. I love that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's it for us today. I want to thank again Chris Eliopoulos from MiseryLovesSherman.com and DesperateTimes.com. Both great websites. Go check them out. And don't forget that this episode of WDW Today has been sponsored by All-Star Vacation Homes. And if you're planning your next trip to Walt Disney World and want that extra space, want to be able to relax on your vacation, want to have room for everybody, the kids can have their own room. Think about it. Privacy. Yeah, no sharing bathrooms, no sharing, space. You get your own private space. Lots of great things. Check them out. www.allstarvacationhomes.com. If you want to find our older episodes, read our show notes, or send us your comments, visit the WDW Today website at wdwtoday.com. For Len Testa, Mike Scopa, Mike Newell, Annette Owens, and Chris Eliopoulos, I'm Matt Hochberg. We'll see you on the next show.
Stupid energy.
This has been a production of Mouse World Radio.